Hi, hi, hello.
Hi, hello, hi.
Welcome back to the Boy Girl Mom and Dad podcast. I'm Lauren,
And I'm Nick.
and we're so glad you're here.
Thanks for being here.
Boy, girl, mom and dad here for the good times and the bad. From gender norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are wet. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.
This is episode 32,
Wow.
and today we're going to talk about how I wrote a book.
You did what?
I wrote a book.
Wow.
On January 31st, my book dropped. It's called It Takes Two, a special book for twins. And I'm really happy with it, but I've gotten a lot of questions, and I thought this would be somewhat of an inspiring and informatory episode.
Informative.
There we go.
Informatory. I do like that word better. I'm just not sure it's the real word. Is that you
So-
writing a note to yourself to not use informatory anymore?
I just want to look it up. Look it up. Is it really not a word?
Oh. Informatory.
Informative. You're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But I get a lot of these questions, and I'm not calling myself inspiring, but I just thought it would be good to kind of walk through the process and the why, and just if there's something that you want to do, maybe you'll feel inspired to go do it.
You're also going to talk about the struggles of doing this while
Yeah,
parenting.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Before we get into the meat of the episode, we're going to have a tiff, which is what we do at the beginning of every episode. Sometimes it's friendly, sometimes it's not. But speaking of meat, today's tiff is about eggs. So I want to know, how do you make your eggs? Whenever I make eggs, specifically scrambled eggs, I like to mix this, or scramble, that's the right verb, scramble the eggs with a whisk in a different container, a bowl, a prep container, whatever. And then when I scramble, they're already scrambled and they're just cooked in the pan. Nick likes to scramble in the pan, which is a little bit, they're not bad. It's a different technique. And I think part of the reason I like to scramble out of the pan is because when you mix the yolk and the whites outside of the pan is easier to clean. The oil from the yolk, the oil and fat from the yolk make it a little bit harder to clean after the fact. But also, like, isn't the right technique like with a whisk? I'm also thinking of Billboard Dad, the first, full feature length movie
Is
from
this
Mary
where you
Kate and
tell people that
Ashley.
you're obsessed with Mary-Kate and Ashley?
I've said it before. Obsessed sounds creepy. I love them. I'm not creepy about it, but I do love them. And I just remember,
You
I
haven't
think
followed their car or gone to their address or anything.
no, I don't even know. They don't live here in LA. They live in New York.
I'm messing with
They
you.
live at this address.
Yeah,
No.
see, maybe you are obsessed with them.
No. I would just like to be friends with them because I think they're really cool. But not in a moochy way. So if you're ever listening to this, Mary Kate or Ashley, Ashley has a child now, so
Okay.
yeah.
You're
Anyway,
making a bad case for yourself.
We could be mom friends. Anyway, Mary Kate and Ashley, Billboard Dad, one of them is making the eggs. I think she uses a fork, and she's like, "You can't do it with a fork. That hurts the eggs." Anyway, that's my question. There's not really a problem with
You
it.
didn't ask a question. What is your question?
How do you make your eggs, Nick, and why?
Well, I make my eggs many different ways. I even scramble different ways. But do I prefer to scramble outside of the pan? No. Do I agree that it has any effect on the ability to clean the pan? No, I don't. I think the difference there is that you don't usually use butter or oil or any type of anything.
I do.
Well, your eggs stick to the side of the pan much easier and grippier than mine do. But yeah, I also don't
Disagree.
cook in the pan with the whisk. I think that
No.
is some level of insanity. But hey, you wanted to talk about our differences. Yeah, I don't know that, if you asked Gordon Ramsay, we're both doing it wrong. So the right way as defined by him and a few other chefs, and of course there's many different ways to make scrambled eggs that chefs will tell you, but they talk about using a small pot instead of a pan, and you do low heat and you go on and off low heat, and you're like basically beating it up the whole time with a yep.
I thought scrambled eggs was high heat and it's very short. You want to make sure the pan's super hot. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-mm.
Pretty sure. I'm pretty
No, I
sure.
think it's medium low. See, we don't even know. We're not chefs.
But I'm also thinking about that in the latest The Bear season when she makes the omelet and she, you know, puts the egg in the sieve to make sure it's all like
Yeah,
the parts are all not parts
before
anymore.
she cooks it
That's actually really hard to get every single piece of egg, the white specifically, through that, but it does make for a very consistent
and smooth,
omelet.
which is what you want with an omelet. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, but I think this is a friendly one because I don't know. I don't really care. I think it's hilarious to use a whisk in the pan, but um, this hasn't been like a source of fights for us.
I more so say I sometimes I use a whisk in the pan, but I definitely whisk before I put it in the pan.
That is not as crazy to me. I think that's fine and normal. I just don't like to do it. I feel it's an unnecessary step because it's going to mix up anyway,
It's
and I
so
don't see a
interesting
material difference.
because when you make the twins oatmeal, we make this differently. I make a one pot oatmeal and Nick transfers. So we mix it for oatmeal, we do like Bob's Red Mills, whole gluten-free oats, water, and chia seeds. And then I keep it all in the pot and add in almond butter and cinnamon and milk. Whereas Nick transfers it to another container, which is usually like a glass liquid measuring cup, to add in the milk and peanut butter and cinnamon and mixes it there, which in my head is like another dirty dish.
A lot of the decisions you make are based on your dirtiness of dishes, which is interesting to me.
Work less, work smarter.
um, so the reason I do that is because I don't want the pan to be cooking the peanut butter, the almond butter, or the milk. So when I'm done cooking, I'm taking the thing that needs to be cooked out. Mixing is out. So I put it into the liquid measuring cup. I mix it up with the peanut butter first because it's hot. So it melts the peanut butter, makes it a little more viscous, and it'll transfer in. And then I add a little bit of milk to thin it out and cool it off so I can put it in the bowl for the twins. I do not, however, add cinnamon there. I only add cinnamon as a finishing top layer
Mm,
because they like to see it, and I don't care about mixing it in.
no, I add it both times. They love cinnamon. They're like, more cinnamon!
They love cinnamon. It's very cute the way they say cinnamon.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Good Tiff.
fun. How do you make eggs? Let us know. Send us a DM. Send us an
I
email.
think on the note of scrambling the eggs before we move on, it's very funny to me that you like to use little prep container Tupperwares to mix your eggs instead of the the liquid measuring cup that I use that is for measuring and mixing. It
I'm
seems
not
to me to be really
against
hard to use a whisk in a plastic container. And you fill it all the way almost up, like there's no way to there's no room for you to mix.
a lot of my decisions are made on what's the easiest route. And yeah, they're a little bit too full sometimes, but it's closer than a bowl and it's annoying to reach in the bowls that are nesting. And then if a lot of times the measuring cups are not there,
The
they're in the dishwasher or something.
We have 3 of them and they're almost never consistently dirty unless you've just made a cake, which I guess is a lot. But the Tupperware and the liquid measuring cups are quite literally at the same height in the same corner of the kitchen. You wouldn't even have to step a different direction to get them, and your reach would probably still work. Decision made. You'll stop using a whisk in the pan and you'll use the liquid measuring cup. Point Nick.
Okay, cool. Whatever.
For those of you who listened to this argument for this long, wow. For those of you who didn't want to, you'll pick back up here.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. I wrote a book. Why did I write it? It's not because I had ample free time.
You wrote it because your husband thought it would be cool to be married to an author. So
Yeah. So I wrote it for my babies, but I also, or I guess, and I wrote it because I thought there was a gap in the market. I was personally annoyed with the twin books, and there are great twin books on the market. I have a blog post of like my favorite twin books. This is my favorite, duh. But I have other ones that I like and recommend, but I was really annoyed because most of the twin books on the market are either um identical twins which mine are not. So they're either 2 girls or 2 boys, and or they were animals, which is not it's cute, but it's not relatable per se. Like, as someone with red hair, I sometimes, as a kid, found it difficult to, like, see myself in other people, which is why it's so frustrating to me that American Girl took away Felicity, the red-haired American Girl doll, and then didn't bring one back. Not that I'm bitter about it, but I just took Olive to the American Girl store here in LA, and they don't even have, like, a redheaded doll, like, on display. And Olive has, like, my color, like, brownish red hair, and so her bitty baby that she does have has red hair-ish, but I think you can still make a custom redhead American Girl doll, but I digress. I wanted them to be able to see themselves in the books. And also, while I was looking at this, I was like, there's 0 diversity in the twin books. And so I wanted to make something that, I'm pro uniqueness, but I also wanted to make something that I felt like other people could relate to and see themselves in, because it doesn't currently exist in the market. So I tried to make sure to have, like, diverse images and also different capabilities. Um, there were more things I wanted to include that we just had to cut. Like, I wear hearing aids, and these drawings are small, so it wouldn't have, like, on purpose. I wanted them small, but it just, like, wouldn't have come out in a way of, like, where we could have done a hearing aid.
It
There's
would
someone
have
in a
been hard to
wheelchair.
see, is what you're
Correct.
saying.
That's what I mean. Um, and so there are things that we had to cut, but ultimately I think that Seeley, my artist, did a really, really, really good job about, drawing something that everyone can see at least a little bit of themselves in. So that's kind of like the why I did it. I also love to help people, and I don't know that this book is like a help book, but again, by being able to see themselves in a book, especially in already such a niche area of twins, I feel like I'm helping them, maybe not in a direct way, but in an indirect way.
I don't know how you don't feel that this is helpful. To be honest, that's why I'm looking at you weird. Like you
Oh,
just described the reason that you wrote it is because you noticed a gap in the market that was probably a lack of representation for fraternal twins and twins that look different or seem different than
yeah.
identical twins. Nothing against identical, of course, but just
No.
you are helping to represent them. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Very,
I
very
hope
helpful.
so. But that's kind of my why behind why I did it.
You also didn't fully say like that. You talked about the diversity piece, which is important in the illustrations, but you didn't talk about that one of the focuses of the book is that twins, identical or fraternal, are different and individual people and should be treated as such while also appreciated as a pair. Because to your point, what a lot of twin books do, especially the ones that focus on identical, they don't necessarily pick apart the differences between the identical twins, like, and honor both of them. They kind of talk about, oh, twins are the same in these ways.
Yeah. So I mentioned, they're each their own person, and it's okay to like different things. But like, you can be different and still be a twin and celebrate your twin relationship. It's a very special one. So, yeah.
I think another thing that it does is it promotes um, healthy comparison, like, and healthy recognition of differences between twins. So like, for example, some twins, or like your twin may be athletic, you may not be. Your twin may like soccer, you may like volleyball, like, and those things are okay. Because I think a lot of twins, understandably, can see lack in themselves in comparing to their twin, and I think you do a good job here of tearing that apart.
Yeah. I mean, should I just read it?
I think you can read it. Why
Yeah.
not?
Okay. Twins are as special can be. Brothers, sisters, you, me. I'm showing the pictures for those who are listening versus watching. Together in the womb, together forever, be it sunshine or rainstorms, no matter the weather. Sometimes twins look alike, sometimes they don't. They often share their own language that only they know. For as much as they're alike, twins are also different. After all, they're each their own little person with their own little spirit. Fraternal or identical, dark hair or light, twins share a special bond that goes well beyond sight. Sometimes ones like fishing and the other horseback riding, running or jumping, or even paragliding. Football, tennis, don't forget the arts. It's okay to like different things and even have different smarts. No matter what you like, no matter what you do, you've got a built in buddy who will help take care of you. They're always connected, even when apart. A twin's a forever friend. They were with you from the start. The end. The other thing I was thinking about is that whenever I read books, kids have a very short attention span. And so I wanted a book that I wouldn't be annoyed reading 10 times in a row that is short enough to keep their attention. But I also wanted really beautiful illustrations, which Sealy did.
They are.
They're so beautiful. Like I want to hang them up on a wall. Like I feel like this, I wanted it to be a book on your bookshelf, but could also be easily a keepsake. Like I'm going to put one in each of the twins' little keepsake box. You could even honestly frame it because I think it's so pretty. Or even like you could frame it like with it open as well. But she did such a good job.
Yeah, it's great. So why are we talking about it today, aside from telling people you have it?
So I have it. You can buy it on Amazon. um, but one of the questions I get is, how did you write this book? And we'll get into the tactical sense of the steps that I took because I think some of you genuinely are interested in like, how did you do that? And how did you know how to do that? But before we do that is just like, how did I do it? Um, I think with everything I have going on, like taking care of twins. So I'm very self-motivated, self-driven. So I think that's helpful, number one, because it's something that I wanted to do. And so typically if it's something I want to do, I really find a way to make it happen. Um, I just had to make time, and this took basically 2 years from start to finish with some bumps in there and some pauses. But so it wasn't just like an overnight thing like, "Oh, I just decided to write a book." No, it's been a long process, and I just had to make the time for it. I also something else that motivated me to do it was the twins themselves, just because I wanted them to have something and it didn't currently exist. Um, I'd say in other ways, able to do it is Nick knew I wanted to do it. And so I wouldn't say like you pushed me, but that you helped me make time to do the things I needed to do to get this done and make it happen.
Yeah. I think while it was a priority for you to do it and something you were excited about, it wasn't something you were always willing to prioritize over what you were doing day to day. And normally, kids and mothering aside is not a problem for you. You're very good at finding that time, but both of us, and especially you, are always so compressed with our time right now because of what's necessary to take care of the twins, that like it was easy to see you're setting this and other projects you've talked about aside, not just to take care of them, but like because it's stressful to take care of them and have a personal life and have a professional life and all the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, so basically it wasn't easy. It was hard, especially just because this isn't a project that I could just be like, "Okay, it's done." Like, yeah, I wrote it. That was the first step, but it was hard for me to do certain things I needed to do, like research factories, because it was just something I needed to do. It didn't let me check I guess I could check off research factories, but I couldn't say, I picked one or I sent something to the factory. It felt like it just was like growing my to-do list versus checking it off. And that's hard for me to do because I like to get things done.
So I think that something we've been talking about, and this is separate from the book, is that Lauren has in my opinion, underrepresents her progress and success where I overrepresent it. So I see the tiny, like, oh, I got this done and I'm working towards a goal as really good, positive, and important, almost more so than like, am I meeting the deadline for the final product? And you, in my experience from the outside, don't seem to appreciate what you have done and feel accomplished until a big chunk or the whole thing, typically the whole thing, is done. So like what you just described is you feel like researching factories wasn't progress. You feel like it was adding to your to-do list. But picking a factory is a big step in getting to be able to sell a book. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying like that's some of the loops that you were getting in that represents how difficult it is. It's like you feel like it was a never ending thing, even though it was a priority for you to get done. It was hard.
Yeah. Because I'm like, well, I could sit here for an hour and research factories, or I could make my inbox down to 0 and publish a blog post, which felt like bigger things to be doing and like mentally something I could check off, which made me feel better. I don't know. I don't
And I
really know how
also
to
think
describe
it,
it.
yeah. And I also think it was easier for you. I mean, you said this directly, like it's easier for you to see a direct value provided to you of doing something like your blog post or your content partnerships or whatever else you're doing, as opposed to a really long project that's new territory for us, like writing and selling a book. So like many times you're like, I can't do this. Like I have to write this article or whatever. And of course you do have obligations to your partners. Like it's not a crazy thought by any means, but I think that where you could have prioritized the book in some cases over the work you felt like you had to do for the blog, you could have done that and it would have been fine. And the piece you haven't said yet that's obvious is like you frequently had to decide, oh, I'm not going to pay full attention to the babies right now, um, and have to check off this book thing, you know, even though having a professional life is important to you and you did prioritize it in your mind, it was tough. Like we've described that mom and dad guilt before of like, I have to work to provide, or, to keep myself sane because I want a professional life, but I also don't want to take time away from my babies. Like you constantly had to make that decision.
Yeah. It's the struggle. But what kept me going is just like it's for them. And so hopefully, I can sell a lot of them and, spend more time with them without having to like actively work. So that was also one of the goals is like getting something like this that I can just sell units and be on not vacation, which is nice, but like,
Well, to
sit
be a little more passive to your point, because like
correct.
hopefully if people enjoy it, which I hope we hope they do, and we think it's great, and we sell enough of them to like keep reordering and keep selling, like that would be great.
Yeah.
And it would be much more passive. But I mean, that's the nature of that. That's why I was. This sounds condescending, so hopefully you don't take it that way. But like, that's why I was imposing on you earlier. Like, it is important to recognize the tiny success in such a long project because you won't see the return from that long project
Yeah.
sometimes ever, or for a while.
Yeah. I mean, the goal right now is to get in the black, but we want to be in the green.
Right.
Um,
For those of you who don't know, that means recoup your investment, get back to zero.
yeah. And last night we were with a bunch of friends who were, it wasn't for me, but it just happened to fall on the same day as the book launch.
It was a trivia
And
night for close friends of ours that do a really good job, and it was their
yeah,
biggest one yet. And if you're listening, it was awesome. It's
it was
every time it's
awesome.
awesome.
It's so good. But a lot of people were saying like, congratulations. And Nick said to me, whenever this was kind of like an on the fly episode that we decided to record, and we were going through what we would talk about, and it was the how. And so I immediately started listing off the steps that I took, which we're going to talk about. But Nick was like, some people do want to know that, but most of them are like, how did you do that? Like with your limited time that you have. Because I think doing something like this in general, even if you don't have kids, is a time investment. And so that's the thing is that you have to make the time. There were so many times where I'm like, I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to be doing this right now, but I have to push forward. And there are times where I didn't. I went to bed because I think that that's important. Like, especially if you're writing, you need to be able to like have sleep. But you basically just have to kind of push through that. I'm so tired, and you have to make time to do it because you're choosing your time for something else because you're not working 24/7. You may be scrolling TikTok. You could be spending your time some other way. So just making the time. If you want to do it, you'll make the time.
While I do think that you are uniquely capable to be able to do something like this, you've obviously done it. I don't think that the reason most people don't do something like write a book or do the little idea they had, I mean, not little, but you know what I mean, like do the idea they had, is that they just don't, to your point, make the time and do it. Like I would be very surprised if the people who were complimenting you last night and all around that know you've written a book are not also able to do something this cool. But it's impressive to them, not because you've uh, got some unique special ability to do it, but because you did do it in the face of all the other things that you have in your life, which for us is a lot right now.
Yeah, and I think
Does that make sense?
yeah. The other thing is which I've had people ask me before, when I was more active blogging, which is still something I love. It just takes a lot of time. With the articles that I write, is like, how do you think of what to say? How do you think of what to do? And like, I don't know. That just comes to me. I think I I am a type A, but I'm also creative in the sense of like that I think and dream of things that I want to do. And so I'm just constantly thinking. A lot of times it's at night and Nick's like, "Can we just go to bed?" I'm like, "I have to
Oh,
write this
you
down."
love to talk about your
I'm
lists
like,
of to-dos right before we go to sleep. You love it. That's your favorite.
Well, okay, but I'm
I
not
don't
talking
mean that
about
as an
to-dos
insult.
right now.
No, I'm not talking that as an insult. I'm just saying, to your point, they always come to you, and that's when there's a flood of them.
I'll like lay down my eyes and I'm like pop up and I'm like, I
Yeah.
have to write this down. Usually it's on my phone.
Yeah.
Probably should get some other form of doing that so the light doesn't wake me up, but I'm already awake at that point. And honestly, if I were to get a notepad, I probably wouldn't be able to read my handwriting the next day. So the phone note app is the best thing for me right now. But just like keeping a running list because Nick kind of said it, but like there are other things I want to do and that I've wanted to do. But I picked this one because I thought it was the most viable thing, the lowest overhead cost, and could get done the fastest.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, this could, get me in the green faster than the other projects that I've wanted to do and still are in the back of my mind.
And like something I think is worth clarifying is like there is a monetary component to this. Like obviously we want to make the money back and hopefully make a little bit. That would be great. But like I wouldn't say that making money was your driver to do these things. Like you were excited to create this, like from a artistic perspective. You wanted this to be out there for other twins in a similar way that you want the types of other products and services you want to hopefully launch in the future to be there to serve them. Like it's not, I don't want us to sound like misers.
I
It's
wrote it
not
for
solely
Cypress and Olive,
financial. Yeah.
number one. You can see them. This is their picture on the cover right here. They're also on the
Show it again,
inside.
but move your fingers so you don't. Yeah.
Oh, this is them. They're also in the front cover. And then they're also on the very last page. So I wrote it for them. And
Yeah.
then I wrote it for other twins who I wanted to be able to
Yeah.
them to see themselves. That was the number one goal.
That's what I'm saying. Like just because you talked about how you prioritize this over some of the other projects you wanted to do, you referenced the monetary piece, and that is a component. But I'm saying that's not. I don't think that was
Yeah.
the only or even major reason you did it.
No. If that was the case, I think a lot of my side projects would be different. Like
Yeah.
I just finished the London travel guide with twins from when we took them last September, and that took me hours. It was so intensive and intense. And I did it because I wanted to help other people have like a great experience and not be afraid to take their twins out or kids out in general. And so that's why I did it, to help others. And there are some affiliate links on that post, but there's not a ton. I did it because I wanted to help. So, yeah.
Yeah. So let me just give you an overview of the day that Lauren had yesterday. So I worked most of the day, okay? And I come downstairs, and usually on those days of the week, Lauren's watching the kids. We only have the nanny for a few hours in the morning. So yesterday, you launched a book that you have written. You were sharing and promoting that, watching the kids, cooked all the meals for them, we're potty training the twins, which we could do 10 episodes about. It's hard,
Yeah.
and we're not done with it. And you made a giant cake that took you, what, 5 hours?
Something like that. It was a caramel apple cake and it was delicious, by Cake by Courtney. So good. I'll put the
All
recipe in
before
the
we went to this event
show
with our
notes.
friends. So, like, this is me doting on my wife, but like, that's why people are asking, how do you do that? Because that's so much, you know? And it's also like, it's, this is why it's frustrating for me when you get in, you're like, oh, like checking off the factory is just it's little thing. Like it's so annoying. It's giving me more to dos. And like, you're allowed to feel frustrated in those moments, but like, those are big steps sort towards things that people appreciate and admire you for. I don't know what my point was, but like that's why people are asking you, how do you do it? And again, I don't like you do have very like you have an amazing abilities to be able to do this kind of stuff, but like I think the encouragement piece that both of us would want other people to hear is like you can also do that. Like being a parent is not a crutch and doesn't require you to set aside the things like this that you may want to do, entrepreneurial or otherwise. You know,
Yeah. And I think again, that's my natural thank you for first of all, thank you for those
I don't
sweet
think I
things you said.
stated it well, but it was intended to be a compliment.
Yes, thank you. I my brain is very much self-motivated, and I've kind of always been that way, which is why we did the episode on the supermom myth, because sometimes it can be hard and that you think you always have to be the supermom, but that's not the case. And but even think like whenever Cami introduced us, she said that like I'm able to get things done in a day more so than a lot of people.
Yeah.
I probably didn't say that right.
More
I am
stuff in a
able
day than most people can.
Yeah, but it's also it can also be to my detriment at times, and so I'm just saying there's a balance, and yesterday was obviously somewhat a balance, and so I'm not superhuman, but I am super motivated.
Yeah.
That was my point. I don't know if I said that well, but the episode on the supermom myth is probably one of my favorite episodes just because it's so personal and that like you are not graded and your worth is not based on how many things you can get done. Because if that was the case for me, like you can compare me now to me pre-kids, like I'm currently failing, but I'm not failing. My priorities have shifted,
You're
and
saying
you have to.
old you would think that you're failing based
Yeah,
on
by that standard, by those
yeah.
standards of things that I can done,
Yeah.
but you just kind of have to move things around. And some days, you're focusing on the book. Some days you're focusing on, like, I had a super interactive day with the twins last week where like we played in the rain and we made volcanoes and we did magnetiles and we had a what's it called? Not scavenger hunt, an obstacle course and like all
Yeah.
these things and like fun shaped food. And that's not every day. I do a little bit of that every day, but it's not that much every day.
Yeah.
Yesterday we watched Encanto and Frosty the Snowman while I was trying to, do stuff for the book promotion. So there's a balance and there may be days where I can get a lot of stuff done, but I'm not superhuman. I'm just putting priority in things that I need to get done and pushing towards those. And it's hard.
Yeah. And like also, and you kind of said this, um, I would say, still feel like you're not doing enough or that you're not being a good enough parent, even when like you had moments yesterday in what I think is, one of your most productive and coolest accomplishment days, like, or days where we can see your accomplishments in broad daylight. Um, and you still had moments of like not being proud of yourself and feeling like you didn't have enough time and feeling like you weren't serving the kids well and moments of frustration, which are all okay. But I think the point I'm making is like, yes, we're encouraging other people to take action on things like this that they've had ideas about and want to do. But in no way are we suggesting that it's some medicine that's going to fix the way you're feeling, or that if you're not able to do these things, you're somewhat less than. In no way are we saying that. Like the point is more just if you feel like, oh, I can't do this, you can do it. And previous to these projects, Lauren was feeling the same way that she's feeling now, like that imbalance of time and feeling like you're giving yourself to everybody. And, I don't know if I'm stating it well, but like those things aren't gone. It's not medicine. And yeah,
Yeah, there are days, even yesterday, where I feel inadequate or I have imposter syndrome where I think I'm like, shoot, like, what am I even doing? Like, why am I even trying to do this? Because it's not going well. Or, yesterday, Nick was like, you've sold this many books. And I was like, okay. And then there was a certain number he said, I was like, oh. And then I was like, oh no, people are buying them. What if they don't like them? What if they just return them? Like, I hope people like them. I like them. And like, that was the
negative
spiral I
cycle
was
came
going
back.
down.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that was a thoughtful or you don't feel alone inspiring little section.
Yeah, my
But
point is
that's
like if you have the idea, go do it, but don't feel any less than if you don't do it. Like my point is to say that you're capable. Like
yeah.
you as somebody who is clearly able to do this and able to prioritize and motivate yourself and everything, like you almost quit this a lot, and quitting is not in your nature.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we can cut this if you want to, but like the part where we got a whole shipment of these that had a mistake, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It definitely wasn't our fault. It was just something that was missed. But you quite literally said to me multiple times in that week, like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I just don't want to do it. And like, your intent was not gone. Like you still wanted people to have it. You were still proud of what you were doing, but like you were ready to quit. And that's because of the
Yeah.
pressures around you.
Yeah. No, we're gonna talk about that in the next section.
Oh,
So,
I'm sorry.
no, 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 we don't need to apologize. We'll talk about it again. Just let people know that mistakes happen. But yeah, there were lots of times I wanted to quit, and that time specifically was a really, really big one. We're busy. What you prioritize is what you do. And something that I prioritize is good skincare and good healthy habits when I can. My sleep was not great last night, thanks to some people who will not be named. It's not Nick. It's not Nick. But, I can take a nice hot shower, an everything shower, or, I can use a face mask. And some of my favorite things are from Primally Pure. I use their shower steamer pods. They came out this past November and they're amazing. They've sold out like 3 times already in the 3 months they've been out. And, oh, I love their clarifying face mask. Their face masks are super hydrating while also detoxifying, so they don't strip your face. But Primally Pure is one of our favorites, and you can get a discount with code.
BGMAD.
Yeah, on every single purchase from Primally Pure, you can use code BGMAD and get a discount. Let us know what you try and have a little bit of spa moment, a self moment, especially if you're a parent and you need a second to yourself. It's just a nice little soother.
Yeah, do it. BGMAD.
So, how did I do it specifically? I think it's so funny because I'm so type A, like, is that right brain? No, that's left brain. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Whatever brain side that is, I think I'm a mixture. But when people say how, I'm like, well, this is how I did it. And like to the point where sometimes people will say, not in regard to this, but in other things like, well, what is that? I'm like, Google it because that's what I would do. And I never say that to them.
Ghost.
Yeah, this is actually another one of our favorite books. It's called The Fort. I've mentioned it before, but it's really good.
Is it a bad time to say that that's one of the books that had an accident on it yesterday, part of potty training?
That's so sad. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, for me, I'm like, let me figure it out myself. Whereas some people are like, they'll text me, what is that or how is that or how do you do that? And I'm like, my first thought is to do it myself and Google it or figure it out. But I never say that, and I'm happy to help people, so don't feel otherwise. But I'm saying that's what my brain is at.
You say that to me.
When was the last time I said that to you?
You don't say Google it, but let me give you an example. Hey, babe, what time is the thing tonight? It's on the calendar.
I don't remember the last time I said that, but I know I've said that before. When did I say that recently? Recently, when did I say that?
Yesterday.
About what?
When I asked you what time trivia was, you got annoyed with me. You said it's on the calendar.
Oh, I said it was in the text thread that it was easy just because in my head I'm like, that's one of those things we've talked about it before where sometimes males will ask females what something is when they could just use their mental capacity and go look at it. And that's a different thing.
I
Like
know, but it's
interrupting
to
in the
your
middle of
question.
it.
I know, and I'm not saying I should always do that, but I'm saying to your point of like feeling like you have to respond with, "Oh, you can do it yourself," or "Let me Google that for you." That's the same thought process. Like you're so motivated to go do the research yourself and find the information yourself, and you're very capable of doing that. That you expect the same for every other person around you, which is why you have that response when somebody asks you.
Yeah, and there are definitely times where that can be edited out of what I said. I think again that goes back to being annoyed sometimes when people will just not use their own resources that they have the same access to what I have. And I think what I said was like, I think it's at this. It says on the text thread, which is basically
I'm
saying
not.
you
I'm not
can,
trying to criticize you. I was
yeah,
trying to. You're the one that brought up this thing about you wanting to say, "Let me Google that for you." I'm saying that's the way your brain works sometimes. I'm
I've
not
never
criticizing.
wanted to say that. It's what happens, it triggers in my brain, just
Yeah,
for the
we're saying the
record.
same thing. Yeah.
Anyway, how did I write this book specifically? So I first wrote this down. I wrote the book in January of 2022. We were in Dallas, and I think we were in town for my sister's bridal shower. And the idea just came to me, and I just started writing it in a note on the phone. I think you were driving, it was raining, and I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
The
And
amount of information you remember is insane to me.
so I wrote it all down and it stayed in a note on my phone. I have a lot of different ideas um, that have just stayed as notes in my phone. But I think that's how you keep having ideas is you keep thinking, you keep actively dreaming about what you can do. And so the twins were about 3 months at this time, which is the thick of, I think, what was one of the hardest stages, early stages for us was that 3 to 4 months for a lot of different reasons.
Pre-toddler, but yes.
Pre-toddler. But for a lot of different reasons, that was a really hard time. And so I did not have time to work on anything, but I had the idea and it was written down. Nick had just gotten back from paternity leave. We didn't have use of our nursery because of mold, so the twins were staying in our room. I was locked in our room with our 2 cats and a dog and the twins all day while they were doing construction. My sister had a shower that month. Anyway, a lot of different things. And so I just didn't work on it. And then I remember that summer, like June of 2022, is when I had more ideas. And that's when we bought the boygirlmom.com website. I was like, does this exist? That's really cool. It rhymes. And then there was a couple other projects that we bought the URL for that I haven't done anything with, as Nick would say, yet.
Was that the sorry to stop you, but was that the reason that we bought it was the book? I know that was a component, but I think
No,
yeah, we bought it for a different project that hopefully you'll still finish. Um, Still the publisher of this
no,
book, but yeah.
no. There's the other URL that we bought when we bought boygirlmom.com for the other project you're talking about.
You're right. You're right.
Right. It's apparel if you really want to know, or if you want to be my investor. This book we did all by ourselves, money wise, and is the website. Anyway, and I remember being really frustrated that summer. So the twins are like 8 months, I guess, at that point, which I think was also kind of a hard stage, or maybe it was 1 year that was harder. Anyway, it was a harder stage than we had been in at 7 months. And I just remember being really angry at God and being like, why are you giving me all these ideas and I don't have the time to act on them? Because at the time, the twins were still taking 3 naps a day and they were literally maybe 30 minutes. So, like, I can't even take a break, like a work break from taking care of them and let alone do anything like clean the dishes or anything like that. And so I felt really frustrated. Like, I have all these ideas and I can't act on any of them. So, like, why are you giving me all these ideas? So for the rest of the year, nothing happens with it. And I think January 2023 rolls around and like, I don't know, I don't think we had time to write goals or anything, just with like everything that was going on in our lives at that point. But we did a little bit. And one of my goals was to write the book. So I'm like, this is going to be the year. So January finishes, and then I think in February I finally sit down and I start, looking at factories. And I tried it a couple times. I'm like, this sucks because, I wanted certain things and it was just hard. Like, I was going into it blindly. I have friends who publish things, but it's like different. Like, a board book is very different. And, we looked at just doing we looked at just doing it where Amazon does it for you, but they don't do board books. So I was like, okay, I have to find my own thing. And so I just started researching factories. And before I did that, I made a list of like what I would like. And one of the things I wanted to do was have it produced in the United States. Um, Ultimately, the cost and the minimums just were not something I could support at that time. Making it in the United States is a lot more expensive, like triple the price or quadruple the price of what I ended up paying for it. Because number one, that's expensive, but number two, I don't think you as the customer want to spend what I would need to retail it for at that point. And I have a hard time charging, I guess, what it should be charged personally, because I don't want people to have to spend a ton of money. This book retails at $14.95. The other thing is like with the minimums, like this first run, I bought 500, and the minimums that were required were like thousands
For the US.
for the US.
I think
Um,
it's still your intent to, if it does well, to switch to a US based
yeah, I would love to
production.
do that.
Yeah.
I would love to do that, but right now they are produced in China. Um, but so I like literally created a spreadsheet, put, the factory name, the cost per book, the minimums, the shipping, the lead time, because I shipped by boat because that's cheaper versus air. So all of that information. I had a couple friends look at it and I'd be like, this price was good. Like it almost feels too good to be true. And they're like, oh, that is a really good price. Just confirm everything. And from there, like I think I looked at a couple samples from the book, like I looked at a couple samples from that the factory had made. Like they told me like one, and I ordered that one just to look at it and see like what the quality was, because there's also different types of board you can use for board book and things like that. There's a lot of options, and so you kind of need to know what you want. And there's just a lot of research that kind of what we talked about. It just takes a lot of time and doesn't necessarily feel like you're moving forward. You're just looking at a bunch of stuff.
Just something that, since you've mentioned it, like you did check with your current factory and make sure they met certain standards that you had um, to produce like you would want from the US, right? So
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like it is cheaper because it's a different country, but there's still a lot of ethical standards and certifications that you were looking for that this place you chose had. So just something to state.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I looked at all the factories. At this same time, I'm looking for an artist to illustrate. And I know a lot of illustrators, so it wasn't hard, but I initially wanted to find someone who was a twin or a twin mom because I wanted to be like all twin related. I really couldn't find, like, I found a couple, but none of them responded to me, which is fine because it wasn't meant to be. And so actually ended up using my cousin, Celie, who's a really, really talented, as you can see, illustrator, graphic designer, all the things. And so she did amazing, followed like the direction that I wanted so well. But so at this time I'm looking, go ahead.
Sorry, I just don't want to move too quickly past what you said your intent was. Like, it's unfortunate you weren't able to find a twin mom or mom to be able to do it. But like, Celie's great. She obviously has an amazing product. We're so happy we used her. But I do think that it's beautiful and worth recognizing that like your intent in going through this process was to try and find other use that this book would hopefully serve, to give them the opportunity to do some work and have other things to do besides their mom tasks as well. Like that's a cool thing. If somebody reached out to you because of your like position as a twin mom and said, "Hey, I'm doing this project. I know you're good at this." Like, assuming you had the time, you would love to get that kind of a request. I think that's a cool thing to support the same community you're trying to serve with the product.
Yeah, for sure. And I would have been open if it was like a twin dad or like a guy who was a twin who wanted to illustrate it, but I kind of
Sure.
in my pocket wanted it to be like all woman done.
Yeah.
And so I was able to accomplish that with Celie doing the art. And so again, I'm looking at
The person who runs
factories.
your Amazon fulfillment is a guy. So
Oh, well, yeah, for sure.
joke.
I so I'm looking at factories and I'm finally like floated the idea to Celie. I decided to move forward with Celie. We talked price and I had her sign an NDA and then before we talked about anything, and then I had her sign a contract um, for work
Still
for
do that
hire.
with family.
Even
We did
more
not
so
have
do
any
with family.
issue,
No.
to be clear. I'm just saying do it.
Yeah. And so with her, we worked at an hourly rate, and so she kept her hours, and so that's how, just because I know people like to know details, so that's what we did with her. And then once I chose the factory officially, I got or I asked rather, they don't necessarily tell you, not that they won't, but these are just things to think about if you're going to make a board book. You want to ask like how they want to receive, like what type of file do they want to receive it in? What are the bleed lines? What's the color request? Is it CMYK? Like what is it? Your illustrator will know what those things mean if you don't, but you need to get the information from your factory. Oh,
Also
another,
use them as a resource if you're not sure if they'll know.
yeah. And the way that we worked it out is like I was speaking with the factory because she shouldn't have to manage that, or that's not what I hired her for. And so there were questions that I asked her, or like questions I asked the factory on her behalf, but like I was managing that. But another thing besides like the board paper you're going to use is also the size. And so I knew I wanted it this cute little baby hand size. So that's just another thing to think about of all the variables and options. So I decided to work with the factory, got that price, and Celia signed the contract, and then we started on art. And for her, I trust her creative design, but she wanted to make sure that it was what I wanted. And so literally, I should have brought it. I do have a picture of it. I basically drew out like where I wanted the text on the page and basically creative direction for each page. um, Very specific. There are some where I'm like, I don't know that I want to go here, and she kind of went with that, and she did take some creative direction and within my direction, but ultimately, I basically said, "This is what I want on this page. This is the look that I want," and she obviously delivered.
So let me say that in a different way because I listen in a different way. What you're saying is you guided her as to what types of pictures, what types of drawings you wanted, and what words you wanted on which page. So you still gave her the creative freedom to draw the way that she wanted to draw, but you were telling her what, like for example, I want children playing soccer in this page. I want them jumping rope in this page. I want them doing their homework in this page. That's the direction you're talking about. The reason I'm clarifying is part of what you said sounded like you were micromanaging the way that she was doing her drawings, which is not the case.
No, and it was also something that we talked about that she requested. So, like, I told her, "These are examples of coloring that I like, and, like, the color
Yeah.
palette that I like." And then on each page, like, I remember on this page specifically with the 2 heads, I literally they were bigger when I did it, and hers look way better than mine, but I had this image on the page, and we kind of talked about it, and so we had a call, and then she kind of drew some stuff to play around and see what I liked, and then made the official drawing. I forgot how she did it. I should ask her, like, how she did it, what programs and stuff she used, but we were definitely very connected in, like, how I did it. Like, this page with all the heads on it, like, I literally had them like this, and the text, like, I said, "Okay, make this one have black hair, make this one have tan skin." Like, I went through and was very intentional, like, inclusivity and, like, making sure there's a little bit of everything. Um, yeah,
I think that just a compliment to you, like I think this is one of the parts where you like found joy in the difficulty of the process because like what you just described, what not to say it was difficult to work with Celia, that's not my point. What I'm saying is it was difficult to get from like ideation of what you wanted drawings to look like all the way to the end, and it's a long process, which as it should be because there's a lot of art and sketches and drawings and everything involved. But this compared to like all the details of the selecting the factory, you were much less upset and much more happy going through this because you were starting to see
100%.
your vision like come to life.
It's also
So,
more fun.
well, of course, it's more fun if you're more visual, like
Yeah.
there are people that find the picking the factory steps more fun than the artist stuff. You're just not that way. But my point is, it's good to have things like this and recognize and savor the joy that you're feeling in the difficult process here, so that when you get into factory selection or monetization calculations and all this stuff that you may not enjoy as much as the artist piece, you remember like this is all part of the process.
Yeah, and to be quite frank, like, this wasn't hard at all for me. The hard part was the hours that Celie put in on it, like, making it amazing. For me, it was like, "Okay, what's in my brain? What do I want it to look like?" And to your
Right.
point, that's really fun for me.
Well, but it's also time consuming. Like I would argue that I'm not sure you took much less time going back and forth with Sealy here than you would have in another comparison selecting your factory. But it feels more like work with factory stuff, whereas here it doesn't feel as much like work.
Yeah, and but for the most part, like, I knew what I wanted, and, like, I'm kind of like
Sure.
that in a lot of ways. Like, we went and looked at couches the other week, and I was like, I sat on it for a second, I'm like, "Nope," or, "I don't like the way it looks, nope." I'll go shopping, I'm like, "Yeah, no, I immediately don't like this, I'm not doing it." And, there are times where I'm indecisive with things, but when I'm indecisive, I'm very indecisive. But when I most of the time, I'm like, "Nope, yes, nope," and I knew exactly what I wanted from my head, so it wasn't hard for me, or the way my brain works per se. So I signed Sealy, I picked the factory, we go back and forth on the art. Whenever you're signing an artist, I had Sealy give me a rough timeline of what she thought it would be, but I wasn't going to say, like, "This is when it has to be done." It was just kind of when she thought the art would be done, so I could
Guidelines,
kind
yeah.
of alert the factory. So we talked about that. Fast forward, the art is done, and I send that to the factory. They get it, they accept it, and then they make a sample. The factory gets it. So Sealy finished the drawings, it's in the right formats for the factory. I send it to the factory. They look it over. They make it into whatever. They put it
Format.
in a different file format for printing it. They make a sample, the factory does, and they make it on like a sample table versus their assembly line. And they send it, I think it was like in 2 weeks. And so I got one, and then they mailed one to Celia as well. We both looked it over. We said, great, approved. The only thing that it didn't have on that is the barcode and the ISBN on the back. And so we had to add that.
It was
So
still like in draft form though, because the goal was to approve the art and the quality of the
yeah.
printing.
So while the factory was working on the sample, I was doing the ISBN, which is the library number, like how the
It's the unique identifier for books that identifies your book against others. It
yeah.
also helps to register against selling platforms like Amazon.
Yeah, so I used Bowker, which is the original. There are a bunch of side companies that will do it, or like what's it, not OfferUp, but what's the site where people can have their services on there?
There's a bunch of them. Yeah, yeah. I don't remember the one you're talking about.
So there,
People offer this service.
where you can hire people like random one-off freelance, but it's like usually lower cost. A bunch of people do this, a bunch of places have them. I just went ahead and did the original, what everything goes through anyway, which is Bowker. And I think it was a little bit more expensive, but I wasn't sure the other ones would 100% work, and so I just went ahead and used Bowker International. Or is it national? Anyway, I'll put the link, I guess, in the show notes. And they make the ISBN, and they made a barcode for me. I used to buy it separately. And then I also copyrighted the book during this time. I do have the little C on the book for copyright. And so I have filed for the copyright. I got the ISBN and I got the barcode, and I gave that art to Celie. She put it on the back, and then we sent it to the factory, and we said, great, good to go. Copyright takes a little bit longer. I think I got a letter a couple months after I filed for it.
Yeah, the copyright is a federal process, so it takes a little while. Weeks? Did you say how long?
Oh, it was a couple months.
Yeah. So do that early. And you didn't need images for that, right? What did you need? I don't
I
remember.
did. I had the front cover. You don't need
Okay.
full images, but I did insert the front cover. There's a couple ways to do it. You can do it after it's, been made and published, but I did it before. And so if you do it after, I think you send in the book physically, but because I did it
Yeah.
before, I could do it online. I thought that was actually really easy.
My
There's a
point is allow for the time because you're validating, like it takes a while to get that part done. And it's an important part, especially if you're going to sell it widely.
Yeah, I'll say though, it's a government run website, and it's kind of wonky, but I think that they respond really well. Like, I think they
Hmm,
respond quickly.
that's good to
There was
know.
a question on my application that they asked about, instead of just, like rejecting it to me and I have to figure out what was the problem. But I also think I asked a question the other day because I was like, should I send a copy into the Library of Congress to be considered to put on the shelves in the actual Library of Congress? And they're like, they don't put every single book they receive on it. And I was like, do you know if they pick it? And they're like, no. So I'm like, okay, I guess I won't send one in now, just because it would probably just sit in a room or something. I don't know. What? You think I should
You
still
should
send one?
still do that.
Okay,
Your
maybe I will.
criteria for not doing it is you won't know?
They don't pick every book, and I will never know if they do it unless someone goes and checks for me.
Is it you send one book, right?
Yeah,
Is it worth the cost of one book to you to try?
maybe.
The answer is yes. I know how much they cost. The answer is yes. Sorry.
Anyway, I did it the pre-sell way, and I thought that was pretty easy, and I got a cool little letter in the mail with a certificate saying, like,
That was an
copyright.
exciting day for you.
It was. So anyway, at that point, the books were being made. I think they took about 30 days to make, and then I ship it via boat, and they arrived October 13th, which was a twin's birthday, which was really sweet. But as Nick said, there was an issue. And October 13th was the twins' birthday. We had a birthday party. We went to Disneyland. We had a bunch of family in town. I didn't have time to open the boxes until a couple weeks later. So it's
Was it only
November.
weeks? I thought it was longer.
It
Just
was
a few
like 3
weeks?
weeks.
Okay.
I open the books and I'm looking at it. I turn it over and there's a space that's been deleted between the words is and fun on the back. I'm like, oh my gosh, my life is over. I have
That's
five.
not an exaggeration. That was kind of your response.
Well,
Like you
it
felt
really,
crushed.
it sucked and it double sucked because it was a Friday. I was super excited for the weekend. I was working on a promo event for the book. I was going to open the boxes, shoot some images so we could get it online. And I was like, I can't do any of this. This is not going to be a productive Friday like I thought it was going to be. And I was going to get all this stuff done. And I just cried all afternoon. And I said, why am I doing this? Why is it always hard? It's never easy. It's always hard. Why am I even trying? I have over 500 books sitting here that are wrong that I'm not going to sell because my name's attached to it. And there's they say like, you don't have to wait for something to be perfect to start. And I'm like, I know that, but I don't want a error on the book. It's not like a $5 book that they'll buy. It's a $15 book. And Nick's so sweet. He's like, you know, the original Harry Potter books, those have errors in them and they go for a lot of money. And I'm like, I am not J.K. Rowling.
Yet.
Anyway, so
To clarify, the feelings you were talking about like it's always hard, I can never like it's never right, I can never get anything done. Those were not feelings about this book. Those were feelings that the book prompted that you were feeling about your life because of being a parent and still working and all the other obligations that you have. It was the weight of everything of a single, mistake, to use a different term. Like I don't think it was anything intentional that anybody is at fault for doing, but it happened and it made you feel like, oh, I can't finish anything. And I went arguably too quickly into solutioning, which is a fault of my gender. But I was like, hey, there are mistakes. Like it's okay. We can afford, buying another run before we sell it. Like let's go through the options. And for more than a day, for almost a week, you wouldn't entertain those ideas and were very much saying to me, I don't think we're going to do this. I don't want to sell it. Like in your mind, that was the end of it. And again, it's not because you're a perfectionist. I think you're close to a perfectionist, but not because you're a perfectionist and you were upset about a single mistake. It was that you didn't feel like you could complete anything in your life due to how busy you were because you were trying to be a mom. So think back to like, for people who are listening, like think back to when we're encouraging you to like, yeah, it's going to seem hard. Do your idea. This is why. Like you could have just as easily decided to stop. We would be out X dollars that we spent. Never tried to sell it. You would not have ever been proud of yourself for it, even though it was great work that you did. And you would have felt even more unaccomplished and unsuccessful as a result of quitting.
yeah, I felt embarrassment. I felt shame. I was like, I've already told people it's coming. I don't want someone to ask me about it.
Yeah.
And I was mad at myself because, and this is a tip for whenever you do it, if you're changing anything, always proof it and proof it again. We changed something. Obviously, the back was where the UPC was added. There was another like color issue between like the factory and there was a back and forth. And I did not proof the entire thing again. I proofed what we changed. And I would say proof the entire dadgum thing again because you can never proof it too many times. I had Nick proof it, I had my mom proof it, but again, I didn't proof that section because it was perfect and there wasn't any need to change anything. And that cost me a whole run of books. I also felt bad because I'm like, it's not like we have a ton of extra money laying around. Like this was money that we could have used for something else that I did, a unit 500 unit order that what do I even do with it? Because I don't want my name attached to it. It's not good. It's kind of like a higher price pointed book, like niche market, and I wanted it to be the best that it could be, and that did not involve a error on the back.
Yeah.
So proof everything again, especially if you're changing something. One of the other things that I was frustrated about was that it was going to come out in November, and I was like, great, Q4, people are going to buy for Christmas. This is great. And that whenever this happened, I was like, I'm going to miss the entire Q4.
I'm just gonna tell you now. I haven't thought about this until today, but like there wasn't a way that it would have been ready on Amazon and ready to sell within that timeline, based on what we know now. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise that it needed to be pushed.
Yeah, I think, it took me about a week to like get over it. I needed to be sad. And then after that, I was like, okay, this is what it's going to be.
That's true. You did snap back.
What, which I think is, I don't always do,
No,
especially with this magnitude. And it was kind of best case scenario. I was like, okay, I am super busy right now. The whole last half of the year was so full.
chaos.
September, we were gone half the month in London and Paris. October, their birthday, family, party, Disneyland.
Sick for like a month. All of us.
November, yeah, between October and November, we were sick. We had Nick's birthday in November and we traveled. We went to Costa Rica for Thanksgiving. And then 2 weeks later, we turned around and went to Dallas. And then we were in Arkansas, in Little Rock. And then we were in Seattle. So there was a lot. And I think it would have been a lot to have to publish then. And so I was like, okay, it'll be ready closer to Valentine's Day. Cute for Valentine's Day. Perfect. People can focus a little bit on it more because it's not in the holiday hubbub. And I will have some more time to where I'm not as busy as I am right now.
I really think we couldn't have handled it now that I'm thinking back, because like the stuff that you didn't say, you talked about our schedule. The part you didn't say that we've talked about in other episodes is like naps got crazy. We went full into toddler mode. It was harder to take care of them in that phase. Plus, we were still traveling without a ton of help, depending on where we were. So, I think it would have added. I think maybe God was like, "Hey, down the road, still do
Yeah.
this, but down the road
And it was somewhat best case scenario also in the sense that my factory paid for half of them. So we only had to pay for
for the second
half
run."
for the second
Yeah,
half. So we only had to pay for half. It still added, like $1 to the cost of the books. Just this mistake, but it could have been worse. And so we got it fixed. We got them reordered. I considered getting them via air, but it really wouldn't have done me that much good because I was going to be out of town at that point. I think they were put on the boat like December 13th or something like that. And then we
yeah.
got them a couple weeks ago. And so in January, we received them like a month later. Um, yeah, during that time, we were working.
Sorry, just you talked about them paying for half. They did that because we put pressure on them because it wasn't easy to trace whose fault this was. So just something negotiation thing. Like if you feel like you deserve help with a rerun or anything like this or whatever, ask the questions. I'm not criticizing you, but you brought this up as you were not comfortable with these questions with them.
Well,
You wanted like exact blame. You wanted only to ask for things from them if we knew it was their fault. And I'm like, hey, we all have a problem collectively, inclusive of the factory. Let's fix it. Like, we might not have been able to afford a full new run. Let's explore the options to do another one. They know they have business coming. Like, just ask. If we didn't ask for a reduced rate, we would have had to pay full run for a second one. And who knows if we would have been able to do that.
yeah. It was also disappointing because initially they were like, "Oh, we can do a run of like 100 that you can do for your event." Because I had an event coming up
Yeah.
literally that next week, and I was like, "Well, I can't do the event with these books." And they were like, "We can do 100 on the sample machine, which is doesn't get out of queue for the other people who are having their stuff printed." And then they're like, "Oh, we can," and where they were gonna fly them in, they're like, "Actually, we can't do any of that." And I'm like, "What? Like, you got my hopes up." So it was a lot of back and forth with that, but I do think it happened how it was supposed to be happened, and I will never
Yeah.
not proof the entire thing again.
Yeah. And I am in no way, by no means excuse me, let me say that again. I am by no means saying be contentious and be angry or disrespectful. What I'm saying is ask questions, understand what's possible, and you may be surprised by what's offered to you.
Yeah, and for the record though, I was never being angry with them or mean to
No,
them.
that's what I'm saying. You were, I'm saying you didn't want to ask the question, but I'm not encouraging us to be
Yeah.
mean. I'm encouraging us to ask.
It was a lot of a waiting game too because I was doing this on a Friday and they're in China, which means their
Yeah.
whole day is ahead. So then they had the weekend, and I had to kind of sit there and sit there and stew essentially because I was like, I don't know what they're gonna come back and say.
Yeah.
But I no, I was not comfortable like being mean to them or anything like that. I just, you know, I don't know. It's done. It's we finished. We moved past that, and it's good. We have a good relationship, and I wanted to maintain that because I wanted to hopefully buy more and do other things. And I have other things up my sleeve.
Another like
Um,
one liner learning from that is just like expect that chaos scenarios are going to happen to you when you pick up something like this. And like it's okay to feel that annoyed, frustrated feeling, but don't let it crush you and move on. Like
yeah.
we could have stopped there and you
hmm
chose not to.
Yeah. It made me think of it wasn't as resilient, but we've described those early days of parenting when you're lack of sleep. And I felt like those, car sales balloons or whatever when they run over they're like going in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wind. I
yeah.
don't wanna go away
The
from the
dancing
mic too
tubes.
much. Yeah, and I felt like that in, like, the newborn phase. I'm like, "I don't know how I'm doing it, but, like, whoop, here I am, I'm up."
What do I
And
do with my hands? Yeah.
yeah, I was down a little bit longer in this case. Like, I thought of, last February when we were skiing, my dad had never skied with me before or seen me ski, which is not a great sight to see, to be honest, but I kept falling and he was like, "You would just stay down there. Like, you would fall and you would just sit for a minute." I'm like, "Because I needed to regain some some, like, stamina. I needed a second just to be like, "Okay, I'm gonna have to get up now, and I have to get down this mountain, so I need a second." And so I was kinda just laying there in the snow angel position for a little bit, cold, crying.
First of all, it's never the snow angel position. It's usually like splayed, you know.
"Hey!"
That's how everybody falls in skiing. This isn't a just you thing. Also, now the week where you were upset after your book mistake came into us, I'm now only seeing you as like splayed on the snow for that week while you're upset.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright. So, back to the timeline of things. We fixed the error, ordered them, and during this time, we are now looking at doing an Amazon storefront, not storefront, becoming an Amazon seller.
Yeah. Um, which is a lot.
Yeah,
They
Nick.
try and make it easy. Shout out to Amazon for trying, but it's a very complicated process and like just build so the same way we are recommending building in time for the copyright and things that deal with the government, I would build in time for this. Like it is a non-negligible amount of time to set yourself up as an Amazon seller and publish your stuff to be ready to sell. And that doesn't even include time to like send it into them and check all the boxes for them to be able to ship it for you and all that stuff. There's a lot.
So Nick set that up for me, and there's a whole like seller process, and then you have to like add your item. And so something else you need for Amazon that we didn't include on the book, like I really didn't get a conclusive answer. I tried to research ahead of time about like what UPCs Amazon needs and things like that, but ultimately I have the UPC on the back, and then we needed a different UPC for Amazon, so we bought the stickers from Amazon, like the verified ones, just because why I wanted to make sure it was the right ones, right? I don't want to just go to those not Copy Mart, Office Max, whatever, and like maybe have the right stickers. So we
Kinkos?
Kinko's, yeah. But
I'm
no, I was
just
thinking like
nostalgic.
Office Depot, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so Nick ordered the stickers, we printed them, and then we hand put them on every single book. We put 4/5 of the inventory
Correct.
in
80%.
to Amazon. I kept some just for the event. I'm gonna have this.
That's not advice, by the way. That's just what we chose to do. If you
Yeah,
throw it
I
all up there,
wanted
that's fine.
I wanted to have some on hand and then just for an event and a couple other things. So we hand stickered them and then mailed them in the very next day. And actually, it went by faster than we thought it would be. Honestly, the longest part was setting up the account, right?
The longest part was setting up the account and doing the research to understand what's necessary because there's so many different things to think about. Um, like, what kind of label do you need? Where does the label need to go? What do you need to avoid when putting the label on? What do you need to do to get a box label? It's not as simple as just buying a label at UPS. Like, where does it need to go? Are you using Amazon shipment or your provider shipment or your own shipment? Like, all these different things are not, it just takes a long time. And
There
good. Well, it was easy. Not sorry. It was hard and it was interesting and surprising in a positive way that it so quickly showed up and was available. But we're now seeing like literally today, day of recording, people are having trouble buying more than one. And even though we have X hundred available in inventory according to Amazon, people aren't able to add them in their cart in certain areas of the country. So like I'm no expert in this, and we're still trying to figure it out. Just, I guess the point is probably like give yourself grace in doing this. And it's, today is like my version of the error in the book, even though it's not as wide scaled, because I just don't know how to fix it right now. So I have to go into planning mode.
Yeah, and why Amazon? Why did we choose to do that? I ultimately chose it because I thought I had the best chance to sell the most on Amazon. And, we toyed with doing Prime or not Prime. And I'm like, I look for books that are Prime, especially if you're doing a last minute baby shower gift, like you wanted to get there in 2 days. And so the other thing you have to think about with Amazon selling is that, you can pay per book when they sell them, or you can pay a flat fee and then there's still another fee. And if you do Prime, there's another fee. So take that into your uh, cost of goods and consider that when you make a retail price, depending on what you're wanting to make on
There
it.
are tools, by the way, on Amazon that allow you to do that. They allow you to put in your cost of goods sold prior to sending them into Amazon. So you can kind of see the whole thing broken down and what your expected profit per book is. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that you can choose is like you can ship it yourself or they can. And honestly, we didn't want to have to ship them. We could, but that's just a lot. And again, Amazon Prime, people look for that. I thought that that would be the best scenario and it was worth the fee for us to do. So I did some research on Amazon, not the back end that Nick did, and I was like pre-sale to not pre-sale, and basically we didn't pre-sale because was it you're not able to do pre-sale with Amazon Prime unless you're like some bigwig? Is that what it was?
Um, I think so, but I honestly don't know. Like, I think the way to go is to like send in your inventory very early, wait until it's 100% available, which we did not do. Like wait until it's 100% available. What Amazon does, if you use like FBA, which is what they call their prime, their distribution for you, like shipping on your behalf.
Fulfilled by Amazon.
Yes, you send in boxes to them where they tell you to send it, and then they take it and they break up your inventory and send it to hundreds of other distribution centers, and maybe not that many, but like tens of other distribution centers. And what I'm finding out today is like in some cases, you have to wait for all of those shipments to be complete for the remainder of your inventory to be available. So my point is, I'm not sure it was an actual restriction on, like I did read what you said. And I think in some cases that's true. But I think it also maybe would have been possible to do a pre-order if our inventory was like aged and 100% available in all of these different warehouses. And we weren't still waiting for that to be the case. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. So for me, it's like, why do a pre-order if I have all the stuff ready to go and sell? Maybe just like to garner
Yeah.
hype. And so whenever I was researching this, I learned the max time to do a pre-order for like an average human being, not like a celebrity writer or something, is 2 weeks, and not to do it any more than 2 weeks because something about the pre-order doesn't count towards not like best selling list, but something like that where it's not
Rankings.
realized rankings. It's not realized until it's actually being sold. And um 2 weeks was a good time for SEO, and that's basically why you're doing it. Search engine optimization is you want it to start pulling and scraping and all of that stuff for people to find your book when they're searching for something along the lines of what your book is about. And so something
Sorry, another way to say that is you want Amazon to be aware of your product and to start to show it in higher page rankings when people are searching for certain keywords. That's what she means.
Yes. And so we ended up not doing anything along those lines because literally, I guess we shipped it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was ready Tuesday. And I was like, hold on, don't make it live. We'll do it Wednesday. So it was
Yeah.
5 days
Yeah, it was
for
quick. It was quick.
2 out of 3 boxes to be processed.
But what I'm seeing, so my advice to future shipments from us and other people who are going to do this with any type of product is wait until you're like, there's 10 different statuses of you've shipped it, it's arrived, and it's ready to sell. There's like 6 of them that maybe make your product available on Amazon, but only the last one is they're all available. And what I'm seeing is like on Monday of this week, like 2/3 of our inventory was marked as available. Today, less than 5 are marked as available. And I think that's, even though we have a lot more in their warehouses, but I think it's because they're still shipping to other warehouses and they're not making that available to their customers yet. So like, I think we should in the future order the inventory earlier, send it in earlier, and not make it available until it's 100% distributed and ready in Amazon's warehouses.
Yeah. And I don't know that jump the gun is the right word, but I have an event this weekend to promote it. And I'm like, well, why would I not want it live? Like, I thought might be live when I did it, but I was like, great, it's live. I guess I'm doing it tomorrow. So,
That is
yeah.
why we did it as early as we did. Yeah.
Yeah, but we also didn't know. But as far as SEO, there is some stuff you're in control of. So something that I did, I don't know, whenever the original shipment was being made, so let's say August or September, I made a blog post on my website, elementsofstyle.com, not mybloggermom.com, and I made a post of like best favorite twin books. And I listed my favorites and then, of course, included mine. It didn't have a link, but I had the name and I had that published on 2 years ago or something so that it could start building up SEO
Really
online.
smart.
So when people search that, hopefully my article has started popping up because a lot of my evergreen content, that's content that lasts for more than just like relevancy in 1 year.
So sorry, content that is relevant for longer than a short period of time is what you're trying to say.
Correct. So like my Gucci Dionysus bag, people still search that and it's like 4
Still
years old.
relevant.
Yeah, still relevant. So a lot of that takes, at least 6 months to start gaining traction. So I did that as far as like SEO and promotion. And then I was working on and am working on a event here in Los Angeles as a little like book launch party here at Pink Chicken in Santa Monica, which is Pink Chicken is one of my favorite clothing stores anyway for the twins, and it just like kind of made sense as a good spot. I didn't choose a bookstore because I'm not wholesaling as of right now. And so that didn't make sense at the time. Plus, I just felt like it was a good partner with Pink Chicken. I'm
You
looking
didn't
at
choose a bookstore yet. In my mind, I have future visions of you reading your book in little children's areas of bookstores to groups.
yeah, maybe. Maybe someday, but for right now, that's what made sense. So you have to see what makes sense for you
Yeah.
and like think of like what already fits naturally into your niche or like things that you like. And I'm looking at a couple places in Dallas where I can do one. Maybe I do one in Arkansas. I don't know. There's lots of options. And my point is that there are other ways than doing a pre-order that can help you and having it pop up when people are looking for things. I think that's it on this. So I don't have anything new yet to say about the book because it's literally the week that it dropped.
Can I ask you some questions?
Sure.
What does book is available and done, Lauren, have to say to Lauren who wanted to do a clothing line?
The backstory on this is that before I was working on the book,
You've said this already. That you said you had other projects you wanted to do, and you already mentioned that a clothing line is one of them. That's why I'm asking.
I know, but I was working on that before I started working on the book, other than the fact that I had written the book already.
Sure.
Because that I was in that moment of I don't want to say my idea because it's a really good idea and I may still do it someday.
I'm not asking you specifics about your idea. I'm saying, what does accomplished author, published author, and we can call this project completed, even though there's more that's going on after it's released, but it's available now. What does this version of you have to say to the version who is still working on your clothing line?
Um I think, what was supposed to happen happened. I was very like frustrated when I decided to stop working on that because, I had my um, illustrator lined up for that, my graphic designer. I had my technical designer. I had a factory I wanted to work with. And ultimately, children's clothes are really hard because I wanted to do like newborn to 5T, and that's a minimum for every single size within that. And, I wanted to do different colors. And so I think that just wasn't supposed to happen. It was a lot of money up front. And so I would say, like, that's still a good idea, but this is what was supposed to happen. And so you should still be proud of yourself.
Okay, I'm going to reframe my question because I'm not getting the answer I'm hoping for. uh, another mom is halfway through their project with an idea they're excited about. You having released your book, what do you have to say to her?
Keep going.
That's
Keep going when
exactly
it's
what I
hard.
wanted you to say. So, same
There's always
question.
gonna be
Hold
another
on. Hold
mountain.
on. Stay with me.
Always gonna wanna
No,
make it
babe, come on. Please,
move.
please, 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 please. What do you have to say to yourself who is still working on other projects like your clothing line?
Keep going. I don't.
Keep
Well,
going.
that's what I said.
No, it isn't what you said. What you said was, "Oh, it's really hard. There's all these things.
No,
I should have said it
just
aside."
now. That's what I
Yeah,
said.
when I framed it as you talking to another person, I'm telling you to talk to you.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
saying
got it.
take this successful moment you have right now that you should be proud of, that you're worthy of being proud of, and use it as encouragement for your other stuff. We're encouraging other people to keep going. And right now, you're a positive mark for those people. Be one for yourself.
Any other questions?
That was one of my big ones. My other questions are, what else are you working on or hoping to work on that you're excited to talk about or maybe ready to talk about? I ask with inside information because I know that list is about 600 things long. So if there's one or two that you're excited about, even if it's not a lot of information you want to give, what are they?
We did our first line of Boy Girl Mom merch. Well, so that's exciting. It's
Yep.
actually should get here soon. It's shipped. So there are other things within that that I would like to do. And that's actually why I even got the boygirlmom.com website, is because I wanted to sell clothing that said Boy Girl Mom, because I was a boy mom and a girl mom. So I didn't see what was out there. So that's the original reason of like why I,
And you didn't feel represented well in that, right?
yeah. And so that's why I did it. So the hats will actually be here for sure by the time this episode drops. Um, there's more twin stuff I want to do that I don't really want to talk about yet, because it's just
Sure.
for privy information. And I know
Sure.
there are other books I would like to do.
Mm.
Um,
Imagine how
twin
much easier
related,
it'll be to do those now that you know a lot of these operational steps.
100%, 100%. Twin books, and maybe something that's not twin related. I mean, I love twin related, but there's a couple ideas I have that aren't as well. I think the next one will be twin related, which is another gap I see in the market. But yeah,
Something that's resonating with me now that I'm wondering if you agree with is it's super simple and again, not revolutionary. I think a big theme in this project for you is that you were able to put a pin in things when you needed to and come back to it, even in the face of what felt like failure and big mistakes. So, like, if we're thinking of advice for other people and ourselves who have ideas like this, I think, like, for lack of a better way to describe it, like, it is okay, especially for us parents, to like put a pin in something and come back to it. And don't feel like a failure if you have to do that. Like, for example, I'm sure you wanted to do this a lot faster than you were able to. I'm sure you felt frustrated when you weren't able to go as fast as you wanted to. I'm sure you felt conflicted. You've said this to me when you had to do things like take care of the kids and like do things at home, your other commitments and your partnerships and work projects, other ways that we were supporting each other, like those things got in your way and you were frustrated about that. But you could have chose to not go back and pick this up. And I'm very happy that you didn't.
it's so interesting, like as a parent versus like me, in my freshman year of college, when I turned in the extra credit that was due by the end of the semester in the first 2
You're
weeks.
a crazy person. You are an
And
absolute
who I
crazy
am
person.
now, because the thing is you never know, like the semester just gets busier. You don't know when you're going to have time, and I have time now to do it, so I'm going to do it. The only sad part was is that I had to present it to the class, so the entire class knew that I had already done the extra credit.
Extra credit is intended to be turned in 1 second before the semester ends and no earlier.
I'm
That's
very
how my
busy.
brain works.
So, but anyway, as a parent, I work now as like, what's on fire now? And that's literally, the night before we were going to launch, or no, the day we finally got all the labels and stuff from Amazon and figured that out, that night, it was probably like 10 o'clock. And you're like, it was like 10 o'clock. And you said, you're going to want to put all these labels on tonight, aren't you? And I was like, yep, I am.
And it was great that we did.
And because the event was like a little bit more than a week away, I guess a day, like 8 days away, and I wanted to try to get it in. And so then the next morning, I'm like, can we please get this to the post office before noon so it can ship out today? And so it's very much like what's on fire now, and that's okay. It's sometimes hard because you miss certain things sometimes. I remember even proofing this book, thinking back to me like halfway like falling asleep trying to proof, which, I missed an error on the
Yeah.
back. But um it's more so like what's on fire now. And I recently had a conversation with my dad's younger brother who is insanely talented and creative. I wish I had the dolls. He made the twins up here. But I remember growing up, my mom bought him a pillow or something that said, I think it was Mary Englebright, but it said like if it weren't for the last second, nothing would ever get done. And I didn't understand it at that point because also I was, 10 maybe. But I remember like the night before his oldest daughter was getting baptized, he was in there making this dress for her and hand sewing on these like tiny beads. And, he got it finished the night before. But hey, that it was before it was needed. And it was like the time that he had when he had. And, they have 4 kids. So hands full all the time, to use my least favorite phrase. But well, they didn't have 4 kids at that point. But my point is like being a parent, you're very busy. We're busy humans, even not being parents. And so it's okay to get something done at the last second because that means it was still right before you needed it. It's the last second. It's not my favorite way to operate, but it's kind of how I've had to operate.
The reason I'm laughing is because 8 years ago, well before you're a mom, if she heard you say that right now, I'm really interested in her response. She would think you were crazy.
Well, yeah, and we have a whole episode on, I think it's titled Having Twins Made Me Loosen Up
Yeah,
because I let go of a lot of things that I previously had a tight clutch on. Any more questions for me for now?
I don't think so, but I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
You should be
Thanks for
proud of
helping me.
you.
Thanks for helping me. Overall, I think the whole point of this episode is that if there's something you want to do, especially if it's for your kids or even just for yourself, like do it, make it happen, make the time, prioritize it, and don't give up. Keep pushing.
And if you can't do it and you didn't feel like you're able to, treat it as a not yet, not a impossible,
Not a never.
not a never. And also, yeah, pick up, like put the pin in it and try and pick it up later.
I'm
And
going to tell you the same thing. I want you to do the same thing.
yeah, I do need to. And we've said it already, but I think it's worth repeating. Like, you are not any less capable than the people around you who are doing these things that you hope to do. Like, I know the people, for example, that were complimenting you this week for having released your book, they could all do something like this. And they do in other avenues of their professional life. But like, in no way are you trying to make people feel like you're a super mom and they're not, like you're extra capable and they're not in any way. Like, I think that you would be very happy to know that you've inspired somebody, which I'm sure you have, to just finish something like this that we've all thought of.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We end each episode with an Ask BGMAD section. And I have the question for today, and it's a fun one.
Oh, you do have one. Okay.
Yeah. It's written in, and it says, your twins are always dressed so cute. Where do you like to buy their clothes? Like, where do you get them? How do you style them? What's the inspiration? So I'll take this one.
Oh, no, no, no. I mean, I think it's me. I hand stitch every one of their clothes. I pick all of them. I don't think Lauren's ever picked a single outfit of theirs. It's clear. It's 100% me, I think. Maybe 1% you. You see them, but I definitely dress them. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Basically, I'm not, even though like I'm from Texas, there's a lot of the, embroidered smocked dresses and Peter Pan colors on boys and stuff like that, and that's really cute. That's just not really my style, especially being here in LA. And so I kind of mix like classic with, I say LA and like still fun kid. I'm not fully sad beige mom. I like them to have fun clothes, but I also like classic clothing and fun. And that's, I think, why I like Pink Chicken so much. Like I found them when the twins were about hmm, how old were they? It was that for my cousin's wedding. I don't know, it doesn't matter. Maybe like between 6 and 8 months. And I needed a shirt for Cyprus, but I couldn't find anything, especially that small, that was like cute, but like casual and button down. All of them were quite frankly dumb. And that's when I found Pink Chicken, which they describe themselves as like a little bit classic, a little bit bohemian. I forget their tagline, but that's how they are. And so I love Pink Chicken, especially for heirloom pieces. Um, but I also kind of like to like think about their style, like or what they like. So Cypress, likes diggers and stuff. So I found him a shirt on Etsy that I guess
And
is sad.
construction stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I found him a shirt on Etsy that, had the diggers on it, but it looked more like not a band tee, but more of like an adult tee rather than what somebody saw. Or the other day I was reading a Facebook comment about clothing and they were talking about clothing their twin boys and they're like, where do you shop that it doesn't look like clown core? Because a lot of like, especially the boys' clothes is like red and yellow and,
Yeah.
like here's a dinosaur and you want a dinosaur or a truck on everything. And that's just not my style. I don't think it's Cypress's style either, to be honest.
He does like those things, but you're right. He doesn't only want to wear those things.
No. And so I kind of like to look what my child likes and kind of like what the vibe I get for them, what's their favorite color, what color are they gravitating towards, and kind of dress them like still kid and fun. Like they don't have to dress like an adult. But I don't know. I look at Pink Chicken. I love Gap a lot of the times, and they have really good sales. Um, for pajamas right now, we're really liking Lake pajamas because they're really nice. I need to do a review of them. Pima cotton, and they're really great for their sensitive skin. Um, don't sleep on Walmart. They have the Easy Peasy line, and there's another one that's all like I like to look for materials that are naturals, like 100% cotton and like better dyes that aren't azo dyes. And Walmart actually does have some of the Oikotex certified organic cotton type stuff, and that's really cute and more budget price point. For shoes, probably the bulk of their shoes are Little Love Bug, which are handmade in Washington State, and they're made to be like barefoot shoes, but they're actually really cute. So like their toes can like wiggle around and not conform to a shoe. But yeah, I also like to buy bigger so the clothes last longer.
Very important.
But yeah,
It's kind of nice that oversized is in right now because you just buy real big.
especially in LA. And so I basically, to answer the question, go for a mix of what they like, what I like, and just keep it fun because they are kids. And so it's a little bit, you can be a little more fun with it.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. Thank you for listening. If you want to buy the book, you can grab it on Amazon. It's called It Takes Two, a special book for twins. I'll also put it in the show notes for you. You can follow us at boygirlmomdot.com.
If we have inventory issues when you go, please check back again. Thank you.
Yes,
We're
there's
figuring it
some
out.
issues as of right now that you can only buy one, which is annoying because if you want to buy one for each twin.
It's not always true, and I don't know why. I'm working on figuring it out. Some
Yeah.
people have bought 2 and 3, and I don't know how.
Yeah, yesterday it was fine. Today seems odd. Anyway, boygirlmom.com. Sign up for our newsletter. We send it out every Wednesday. That's where we keep all the details, and you can follow us all of those other places. And we look forward to chatting with you again.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks, babe.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for growing with us.
Boy, girl, mom, and dad. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.